Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, actually. It's 2 minutes past the hour, so it's technically afternoon here. Good afternoon and welcome to the story of the Irish in BC. My name is Courtney, and I'm president of the Irish Women's Network. And I'm delighted to be your MC today for today's presentation. I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm on the ancestral unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh people who have been in this area for thousands of years. And we're delighted to work with them on numerous projects, and we acknowledge their presence and their presence here on these lands. And I also acknowledge that you're dialing in from various places in BC, in Canada, and across the world. And we acknowledge the carers and keepers of those territorial lands too. So at this time, I would like to introduce, just a little bit of housekeeping to start off with. You'll all be muted. And as speakers are introduced, they will need to unmute themselves. So questions or any technical issues can be put in the chat. And we recommend that you put your Zoom on speaker view, so that way it will feature the numerous people that are going to be doing presentations today. So we'd like to start by introducing Rachel Quinn, and Rachel is the Festival Director of Celtic Fest. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Eilish. Yes, welcome everyone to today's event. I would like to start by sincerely thanking Eilish from the Irish Women's Network and also Consul General Frank Flood for hosting today's event. I've seen some of the content and I know it's going to be a really interesting and great event for everyone. If you've had a chance to join us to date with the festival, I hope you've enjoyed the events. We have lots more to come. The event's schedule runs until this coming Saturday, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please visit our website, celticfest.com, and you'll get all of the information there. I would like to take this opportunity also to thank our sponsors, in particular the Consul General of Vancouver and also the Immigrant Support Programme from Ireland. It's been great to have the ongoing support. And because of the sponsorship, we have received from all of our sponsors and our supporters, all of the content for the festival is brought to you completely for free this year. So on that note, I would like to say that we do have a charity partner called Backpack Buddies. If you are willing, or if you are in a position to make a donation to Backpack Buddies, that would be greatly appreciated. We did set a target of $500, which was surpassed on Saturday night, which was fantastic. But we will be sharing the link throughout the course of the festival. So I will pop the link into the chat during this meeting. So as I say, if you're in a position to do so, please make a donation. Thank you.
That's great, Rachel. Thank you so much. And yeah, the events that have happened to date have been fantastic. And I know there's lots more planned this week. So if you haven't checked into Celtic Fest, you should do so. And now I'd like to welcome the Consul General of Ireland in Vancouver, Frank Flood. The consulate opened, as many of you know, the consulate opened in 2018, and it couldn't have happened at a better time for a number of reasons. Obviously, the community needed a center point, a focal point here, and we were delighted to see that there was going to be a consulate opening here. But of course, then when 2020 happened and COVID, they have been just extraordinary in their support of the community here through that whole past year. So, but apart from all of that help, they've also been, you know, when the Consul General came, he was super interested in tracking who and where the Irish were in BC and what are their stories. And I know he's going to talk a little bit more about his interest in that regard and today's presentation. Thanks. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you very much, Eilish, and Céad Míle Fáilte. Hello, everybody, and it is a great pleasure for me to be here with you today. And I'd just like to say a few words of appreciation and then a background about how this event came about. I suppose that this is the event, of course, that is part of the Celtic Fest Vancouver. And as Rachel has already pointed out, it is a fantastic event. It is a brilliant program that she's put together. I'd like to thank Rachel and Harry Cousin and the inevitable Amy Dennehy, who's his name was all over the event there on Saturday night, and we all remember Amy. So, but it is a great team, and it is a credit to all concerned that it is such a fantastic event that's keeping all our spirits up during this difficult times over St. Patrick's Day. I suppose what I had the honor and pleasure of coming to British Columbia, beautiful BC, to open up the consulate here. We had three objectives when we started off. One was to open up a new office, and you can see it virtually in the background here. And hopefully, I really look forward to the day that we can all get together in person in the new consulate office. Secondly, was to establish benchmarking exercises. One was on the trade side, we funded a trade directory, which was excellently carried out and led by Lark Quigley and the Vancouver chapter of the Chamber of Commerce. And I know now that Rory Spillane and his new committee is doing excellent work, and they're updating the website, and they will always have a members directory on the new website so that we can see what's happening and who's involved on the trade side and on the commercial side, and that has an Irish background in British Columbia. And then, of course, with the Irish Women's Network back in 2019, which seems like eons ago these days, we carried out a community mapping project, which involved was a desktop study to identify, and it came up with the fact that there's 675,000 people in British Columbia claim Irish ancestry, according to the 2016 census. And we had focal group discussions, and we had a survey, and all this was put together in an excellent website, which I really encourage you to make use of. It's the Irish in BC. And the Irish in BC website now has a newsletter, comes out every week. And it's excellently reproduced, and it keeps everybody informed of what's happening at the moment. But of course, the other part of the equation for the consulate's point of view is, now we have an office, and now we understand where we are, but where did we come from? What was the story of the Irish in BC? And I know there's been some efforts in the past, and again, with the Irish Women's Network taking the lead with an oral history project with the Simon Fraser University. But I suppose these days, particularly, I suppose with COVID, it's made us think back, sit back a little bit, and really appreciate what matters to us, and what value, what is of value to us, and what is the story, and where we are now, and where we came from. And I think with COVID, it's made us think of, what do we really appreciate these days, and where are we coming from, and where are we going to? So I think it's very timely that we now, as we're beginning to come out of the pandemic, thanks be to God, start to look back at the history of the Irish in BC. And it so happened last year in January, I was back in Ireland, and I met up with Trish Lamb and the Gallery of Photography Ireland, and she explained to me that the Gallery of Photography Ireland wanted to do an album, a photo album, showing some of the families and the history of some of the Irish families in Canada, and she was particularly interested in BC. So at the time, we were all very positive, and Trish was going to come to Vancouver. She was going to Toronto, and was going to introduce her to Eilish, and we were going to, all get together, and maybe we tour around. And of course, none of this happened. Everything collapsed. So it was a bit of a surprise to me, to be perfectly honest. To come September, I think it was last year, we got an email from the Belle Trish Lamb. She doesn't mind me calling her the Belle Trish Lamb, because she's said, we're going to make this happen anyhow. And I said, how are we going to make this happen? So she explained that we could do this remotely, that the consulate, we could buy a scanner, that we could train people up. So on one cool old damp Saturday morning, Eilish, Courtney and Blahian Noon, and Blahian's been very involved in all this, went into the consulate, got on to Trish and her team with Dan and Darren, and learned how to scan the photographs and upload Irish family photographs, so that we could produce, believe it or not, a book of family album of the Irish in Canada virtually. And so it is for great credit to all concerned, because particularly Trish Lan and Eilish Courtney and the Irish Women's Network, that we're actually able to make this happen in a virtual world, and that the book will come out in a few months' time. And today we thought we'd take the opportunity to give you a preview of that book, and the official launch will happen in due course. I'm sure the Irish Ambassador Eamon McKee will lead on that. But today, because we had so much involvement in British Columbia here, that we thought we'd sneak a preview at it and highlight it for you. But I'd like to finish by thanking you for all taking part today, and I think there's over 100 people present, and I must particularly Mayor Mike Hurley, I know, is virtually, and the Mayor is a great friend to the Irish community in more ways than once, but it's great that he's actually going to be participating today. But I'd like to thank you all for taking part today, and at the end we might explain a little bit more about how we might expand this project and build on this project to celebrate the friendship and the collaboration and the welcome that the Irish have always had in British Columbia. So I'll hand back to you, Eilish, for that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Frank. Yeah, and as Frank said, he gave you a bit of a preamble to the photo album of the Irish. And this is a book that, BC is only one part of it. It's all across Canada. And we were delighted, though, that actually we had we're featuring 7 BC families. Originally, they thought maybe 2 to 3, but with the way it worked out, there's 7 families from BC featured, which is very exciting. And yeah, so and as the book, it's just about to come out. We're hoping in a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be out. And I know, though, I do want to acknowledge that Trish and Dan and Darren, who are the team from the Gallery of Photography Ireland, are on the call, and they have just been phenomenal to work with. And of course, it was done, and I know they'd like me to mention this, that it's a project that was funded through the Government of Ireland Immigrant Support Programme as well. And of course, the consulate here and ourselves partnered with the BC only bit. Now, what we're going to do now is we have 7 families that are going to share brief stories. I had to ask some of them to cut them down, and we're going to run some photos as well. The photos don't tie up with the stories that you'll hear. You're just hearing little extracts from the stories. But I hope it'll give you a sampler and a taster of what is to come in the book. And then it'll whet your appetite and also give you some ideas about thinking about your own family histories. That's even more the point that we want to, bring into this, the ideas that will come up. When we put out a call in the newsletter a couple of months ago actually earlier on, a couple of months ago, time flies, but a number of months ago, we got no one coming forward. And so we approached, between the consulate and ourselves, we approached people. So that's how we got the people. But so keep that in mind as you're watching this. So I'd like to start today with Catherine O'Hara Schubert, and a quick story on this. Trish in Dublin had asked me if I knew of this woman, and I said, no, I hadn't heard of her. And we were trying to figure out how to get in touch with her relatives. And as it turned out, in conversation 2 days later, what are the coincidences, with Rachel said, oh, my neighbor has, ancestors who were connected in this way. And it turned out that Rachel's neighbor is actually one of the great-great-granddaughters of this woman, Catherine O'Hara Schubert, and she put us in touch then. So I know Gay is on the call today, and I'm going to introduce you now to Sherilyn Jerrig, who is a great-great-granddaughter of Catherine O'Hara Schubert. And Sherilyn, if you'd like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and we will start your story.
Hello, I'm Sherilyn Jerrig. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can,
yes.
Sherilyn.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the privilege of sharing some of my family history today. So here goes. Catherine O'Hara was the youngest of 9 children in a family of flax weavers living near Rathfriland, County Down, Ireland. As a young girl, she survived the potato famine, then an attempt at kidnapping, and carried on as a young teen to train as a housemaid. Seeking her fortune in America in 1850, she bid her family farewell, promising to send money back home, then boarded a ship for the long, miserable voyage. Catherine was hired as domestic help in Springfield, Massachusetts, where in the home's great library, she was able to foster her passion for literacy and education. In 1855, Catherine met Augustus Schubert, age 29, a carpenter who had immigrated from Dresden, Saxony 10 years earlier. In 1862, London newspapers advertised a 2-month pleasant stagecoach trip via Canada to the goldfields of the Cariboo, BC, bypassing the longer route via the Panama Canal. On arrival by steamboat at Fort Garry, now Winnipeg, the fortune seekers realized with no small bitterness that comfortable transport did not exist. Only a few fur trading trails remained usable due to high water tide. Scores of men stayed in the east or returned home. The actual journey for those remaining took about 4 months. First, a westward struggle in red river carts across pest-ridden prairies. Then a treacherous hike leading horses across the slopes of the Rocky Mountains via Yellowhead Pass. The journey, and many lives, ended with the Fraser and North Thompson River voyages. Catherine's unwavering determination to keep her family of 5 together resulted in the uncommon allowance of herself and the children, 6-year-old Augustus, 4-year-old Mary Jane, and 2-year-old Jimmy, to join Thomas McMicken's leading company of 137 men. Catherine was almost 5 months pregnant, a secret well kept until late in the journey. Her husband certainly had much at stake to turn his gold-filled dream into a safe reality. Rafts were constructed repeatedly as they broke apart in rapids. Provisions, horses, and even men were swept away by currents, some perishing. It took the Schubert party 40 days of portaging and rafting to reach their destination of Kamloops. Starvation had set in. Potatoes dug from a garden at an abandoned indigenous village that had been stricken by smallpox, as well as some rose hips found along the riverbank, staved off certain death. Incredibly, when Catherine's baby could wait no more, they pulled ashore and Secwepemc women helped deliver her 4th baby, Rosanna, on the 14th of October. Rose was named after the indispensable survival food, rose hips. Nowadays, there are hundreds of other O'Hara Schubert descendants all over the globe, from Ireland to New Zealand. Many have the legacy of a home nestled in the mountains, valleys, and farmlands of Canada, especially in BC. Spectacular natural beauty and wilderness still inspire wonder, and the ever-changing cities and towns present bright futures, rendering the first quest for shining gold as rather pale. Thank you.
That's great, Sherilyn. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as I said, these are just snippets of the stories of people, and you can hear this. Catherine O'Hara Schubert is fascinating. You can Google her, and there's lots of other stories and images online too. But also wait for the book, because it's definitely something you will enjoy. So thank you very much, Sherilyn. If you don't mind muting yourself again. Thank you. So next we have the Davis family. Unfortunately, Wade Davis can't be with us today, so I'm going to quickly read a small part of his story too. Wade is a professor at UBC and a renowned anthropologist and writer. And so I will start by reading his story, a little bit of his story. So he said, my father, George Davis, had 2 Irish connections. The father of his grandmother, Annie Wade Davis, had emigrated to Canada from Northern Ireland, ending up in Brockville, Ontario. That's all we know. Dad's mother, Annie Walsh, was born 1st of April, 1880 to John Walsh, a farmer, and Mary Purcell Walsh in Moat, Ballinakil, Abbeyleash, Queen's County, Ireland. Walsh did not sign the birth certificate, but made his mark, suggesting a modest family with limited education. Family lore recalls the Purcells as townfolk of some means, who looked down on the Walshes. John had 5 children with Mary, and after she died, he had another 6 with a second wife. The Purcell grandparents saw to it that all of Mary's daughters, including my grandmother, were sent away to convent school in France. Annie was a great beauty, and happily she escaped the nuns to live a gay life in Paris in the last years of the Belle Époque, supporting herself by modeling for an early French dress house. Before the war, she became engaged with a French officer, a man of some wealth, judging from the jewelry still in family hands, diamond rings, sapphires, and emeralds, surely dazzling at the time to a farm girl from Ireland. Sadly, her fiancé, whose name is unknown to us, was killed at the Marne in September 1914, one of a million men to fall in just 6 days. In the shadow of grief, Annie met my grandfather, Daniel Wade Davis, a surgeon attached to the Royal Medical Corps. At 35, she looked 10 years younger, so she lied about the date of birth, bringing it forward to 1886, making them on paper the same age. After 2 years at the front, my grandfather was posted to London, where my father was born in July 1917. My grandfather brought my grandmother home to Canada, where eventually, after further training at Columbia in New York, he took a job as a company doctor in Kimberley, a small mining town in the Canadian Rockies. Dad attended a posh boarding school on the coast, moved on to University of British Columbia, and then to St. Mary's in London to study medicine. He was behind the lines in France at the outbreak of Hitler's war. Later serving in the Home Guard during the Blitz, something snapped, and he disappeared from view for 3 years. Stacks of letters chronicle my father's desperate search for his son. Unbeknownst to his father, Dad served in the Canadian Army, being honorably discharged, deemed unfit for military duties in 1943. Dad only emerged from the shadows in 1944, when word somehow reached him that both his parents had been killed in an accident, struck head-on by a drunk driver on the Malahat Highway on Vancouver Island. Dad never spoke about his parents, the war, or the past. My sister Karen, an Irish beauty, if ever there was one, was born in October 1951, and I came along in December 1953. And these are, I'm stopping there because there is more, there's a little bit more about Wade's. You can see some of the photos of Wade's career as an anthropologist. And also he has a lovely story about how he met his wife. So again, this is a teaser for the book and the website. So thank you to Wade for submitting that. And now I'd like to introduce Maeve Glass. Pam Glass is well known in the Irish community. She was a stalwart of the Irish Women's Network, a huge community contributor in many, many ways. And Maeve now is going to share her mother Pam's story. So Maeve, can you unmute yourself and share your story?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Eilish. Just a quick thank you to you, Eilish, and the Irish Women's Network, and to Consul General Flood and everybody involved in this. It's a real privilege for us to be able to share a little bit of our history in Ireland and in Canada. So thank you. Pam Kelly was from Malahide and Cecil Glass was from Castleknock, both in County Dublin. Pam was a pioneering sportswoman and was the first president of the Crusaders Athletic Club in Dublin, which still exists today. She played field hockey at the provincial level in Leinster, and Cecil was an avid footballer. Pam and Cecil met at an Electrolux dance in Dublin in 1949. Cecil was immediately smitten with Pam's engaging personality and vice versa. Their regular meeting spot over the next 2 years was under the clock at Cleary's on O'Connell Street in Dublin. In 1951, Cecil asked Pam if she wanted to be buried with my people. Cecil's family were Church of Ireland and Pam was Roman Catholic. They decided the best course of action, so as to not offend either family for religious reasons, was to answer the call of the new frontier, Canada. Cecil emigrated in March of 1952, and Pam would come once Cecil had settled. Prince George, BC was the chosen destination. Pam followed, taking a transatlantic voyage on the cargo ship Irish Oak. They were married in Prince George 2 days after Pam arrived on the 15th of September, 1952. They spent their wedding evening pouring insulation shavings into the cabin they were building that would be their home for the next 3 years. Pam and Cecil immersed themselves in the fledgling community of Prince George. They both won awards for drama and sporting pursuits. In 1957, they packed up the household, the dog and the budgie and the cat, and made the trip to Vancouver. They never looked back. They started a family with the arrival of myself in 1959, my sister Kelly in 1961, my sister Siobhan in 1962, and my brother Eamon in 1967. We were all given Irish names so as to never forget our heritage. Pam and Cecil both went on to have distinguished lives in their adopted homeland, both professionally and personally. Pam's roles were diverse. She was a teacher, an athlete, a community advocate, a journalist, a press attaché, and a politician, ending her professional career as a judge with the Citizenship Court of Canada. Cecil finished his professional life as an engineer with Jaguar Canada. Mom and Dad bought the Irish values of hard work, giving back, and love of family with them when they emigrated, but they never forgot their roots. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Maeve. Thank you so much for sharing. I have to say, this was a beautiful project to be part of, because knowing some of the people involved, I didn't know everybody, but knowing, of course, your family and also the family that's now the next family I'm going to introduce, it's just been a real treat hearing the stories. It's really special. So thanks, Maeve, to you and your brother for being involved in this too, and all the family members that were probably dragged into helping as well in the background. So now we have the O'Rourke family. So of course, Deirdre and Brian are, again, very established members out in the White Rock area. And Deirdre is a past president of the Irish Women's Network, one of the first people I met, and roped me into taking over from her as the president of the Irish Women's Network. But we've worked together on many occasions, and they're big community members too, as I said, involved in the Irish Club White Rock out there. So Deirdre, are you able to unmute yourself there? And I know you're on.
I think I am, yes.
Perfect, great, off you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thanks.
All right. All right, it all worked, Eilish. Thank you. And thank you for all your support in getting this off. Anyway, it's an honor for me to read this amazing man's story, a real honor. Brian was born in Dublin in Sandymount in 1946, grew up in a large extended family, and at 14, he joined the Franciscan Brothers. And he left that after 10 years and came to Canada as a volunteer with the Frontier Apostles and paid $25 a month room and board. And his first posting was in Fort St. James, looking after the maintenance of the Catholic school. And it was there he met Father Ivan McCormick, who became a very close friend. Father Ivan was a flying missionary priest for the outlying reserves, and he recruited Brian to come to Fort Ware. And it was there that Brian built homes, community halls, and met some lifelong friends. After Fort Ware, Brian came home to Ireland, and it was there he met myself, Deirdre, who he quickly fell in love with and proposed after 3 weeks. Married in June 74, and the following day flew back to Vancouver, then up to Prince George, Fort St. James, and Fort Ware. It was quite the adventure for both of them. Deirdre was 21 and a real city girl, arriving by float plane on the Finlay River into Fort Ware, and for Brian returning after 6 months with the bride. After 3 months in Fort Ware, they moved to Prince George, where Deirdre experienced her first white Christmas. January 75, they moved to the Lower Mainland, and Brian worked for Walter Cabot Construction and became good friends with the family, and they gave great support in getting our first home and starting Shamrock Renovation and Construction. September 76, our first child was born, Sinead Alice, and then went on to have Sinead, Shane, Sheila, Aisling, twins Con and Tiernan, but sadly Tiernan died at 6 months. And then family life proceeded with many, many stories. When the children were all grown up, Brian and Deirdre joined the South Surrey Rotary Club, and they've always worked well as a team. We became very active, winning many awards, and Brian became director of international projects. And along with other Rotarians, he went to Battambang, Cambodia, to work on an orphanage, upgrading the water system, the electrical and sewer system, and educating locals on simple maintenance. They also went to Bangkok, Thailand. They also went back to Thailand and rebuilt an AIDS hospice. Both projects are ongoing with the Rotary Club and supported by the South Surrey Rotary Club. Brian and Deirdre are very involved in the Irish community in the Lower Mainland and now live in White Rock, celebrating 47 years together, 5 children, 13 grandchildren, and they all live very close by, truly blessed. Brian enjoys spending times with the grandchildren, sharing stories, teaching them all kinds of projects, and he's a bit of a Shanachie. And our family parish is Star of the Sea, the same as in Sandymount, so life is a full circle. But that is only half of the story of this amazing man, and it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Eilish, Frank, and all that have been involved in this. This is a real honor to us. Thank you.
That's great, Deirdre. Thanks so much. I can't see you. I hope others could, but we could certainly hear you and hear the story. So fantastic to have you share that story. And next we have the Hughes family. And I was delighted to meet Philomena when the consulate, we traveled up, when Frank and I traveled up as part of the community mapping project. We did a little bit of a tour around BC, and I got to go to Prince George for the first time, excuse me, and met some of the Irish community there, which was a real delight. And I know a few of them are on the call today. And we're thrilled we were to meet Philomena at that time. And now she's going to share some of her story, her family's story about life in Prince George growing up. Philomena, are you unmuted?
I am indeed, and thank you so much. I also wanted to acknowledge that my mother, who the story is about, I don't know if you can see her, is right here. So she'll lean on me as well. So this is Eileen and Bill Hughes, their story. So thank you so much. And I'm speaking to you from the unceded territories of the Lake Tenay, which is Prince George, BC. So it's delightful to hear the stories of other Prince George people. So a snippet from their story is what I'll read. To keep her promise to God and have an adventure for 2 years probably best describes why William Augustine Hughes and Eileen Mary White found themselves journeying to frontier apostle land, well, as frontier apostles to Western Canada in 1957. Neither knew the other in Dublin, though they lived within a few miles of each other. Liam was working at Dockrell's at the carpet and linoleum department, and Eileen in her brother's bicycle shop in Nace Road area. Both had vehicular accidents which had changed the course of their lives. Both answered the call of Bishop Fergus O'Grady to come to Canada on a one-way ticket to work with the First Nations people for $25 per month for 2 years. Don't bring any extra clothing as it won't be suitable, and we'll provide it for you when you get to Prince George, was what Bill was told by the recruiter, Father Clenahan, in 1957, June. Liam boarded the Aer Lingus flight with another volunteer. The final flight into Prince George was being with 200 baby chicks in the front seat. In September of the same year, Eileen traveled on a cruise ship by herself, dancing every night of the 7-day voyage. Upon arriving in Quebec City, Eileen took a seat on a train headed west and woke many hours later and was shocked to learn it was another 5 days to reach her destination. Bill received a leather jacket from his first Canadian friend, Bob Goodrow, but the promised clothing never appeared. In Prince George, both were eager to begin, but unfortunately, the Frontier Apostle movement was not ready for them. They were told to find employment for themselves, but were helped to find accommodations. They did teach catechism and were members of the Legion of Mary, and both had a spirit of adventure, but were not drawn to each other initially, as they had just left the old country. Prince George was a small town of about 30,000, so they would often be at the same events, and by 1959, they were married. The less formal Canadian lifestyle certainly appealed to both of them, from the casual attire to how they opened the doors of their homes to strangers, sharing a meal and providing a place to stay for others starting out. Eileen and Bill, as he was now known, started a family which made them the first frontier apostles to have children. Philomena, that's myself, Patrick, Joan, and Christopher were all born here in Prince George, thus starting a new generation of Canadians. And in time, they became grandparents to 6 and great-grandparents to 2 more. Eileen's mother would make trips to visit her daughter and her ever-evolving family, but it wasn't until 15 years later in 1972 that they would travel to Ireland to meet the rest of their relations, and by then, many things would have changed in Dublin. I'm going to stop there because the story goes on, as you can see through photographs, and again, the book is coming. The story really begins at that point because these adventures of family is what really is what we're seeing now. And the story goes on too long, as we all know.
And we'll for a long time.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Philomena. Thank you so much. And Eileen, thank you for being with us too and allowing us to have your story. It's a very special story. And yeah, it's wonderful. So thank you so much to both of you
You're welcome.
I can tell you
for
something
being part of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So next we have, he was mentioned earlier on, but we're delighted to have him on the call, Burnaby Mayor Michael Hurley. And he's no stranger to many, as we've said, and we're delighted really to have him as part of this project. So Mike, are you on the call? Are you muted, unmuted? Okay.
I'm thrilled to be part of this and very honored to be part of and thank the Irish Women's Network and Frank Flood for giving me the opportunity to be part of this. As was mentioned, my name is Mike Hurley and I'm the mayor of the city of Burnaby, and I'm speaking from the unceded traditional territories of the Hunkamanum and Squamish speaking people. I was born in Magherafelt, Northern Ireland in 1958. Came to Canada in 1983 at the young age of 25, and music and Gaelic football dominated my youth. And I had the pleasure and the honor of representing my county at both minor and under 21 levels. I first settled in Vancouver and moved to Burnaby in 1988. My wife Jennifer and I met in 1998, and we have 3 boys, Niall, Jarlath, and Kieran. And I have an older daughter, Sabia, who just finished at Simon Fraser University. I joined the Burnaby Fire Department in 1988, and throughout my career, I held many positions: driver, technical rescue team member, hazardous materials specialist, and instructor, lieutenant, captain, and acting assistant chief. I was president of the Burnaby Firefighters Association from 1996 to 2001, and the president in 2098. I was also president of the BC Provincial Firefighters Association from 2008 to 2016. As president of the Professional Firefighters Burn Fund, I led an effort to raise $15 million to build a facility that accommodates families and burn unit outpatients for Vancouver General Hospital and BC Children's Hospital. My second home is with the Burnaby Firefighters Charitable Society. The society raises money for community groups and nonprofit organizations, which supports more than 50 charities, raising over $800,000 annually. And that's all given to bursaries. And we operate a nutritional snack program for kids that show up to school hungry daily, unfortunately. And now we're into 26 elementary schools, 4 high schools and 4 youth centers in Burnaby. I was honored to receive the Queen's Jubilee Medal in 2002 and the Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2012 for service to my community. And in 2018, I was elected mayor of the city, and that is my position right now. So I'm going to leave it right there. And again, thank you so much. I'm honored to be part of this book. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Hurley. Thank you for your story. And yeah, wonderful. Wonderful to hear all the different ways that people have integrated themselves into the community here. So the next story is my own story. And I have to admit, Trish did a lot of working on me on this one, because as the coordinator, I felt A, awkward to be doing my own story. B, I felt like a relatively newbie. I was thinking of Catherine O'Hare and all the and you know, Pam and others who had come over much earlier, and I felt, well, I'm only here, although I am here 30 years now. I keep forgetting that you know, time flies. So I'm going to share. It's more about my family history, and you know, but anyway, I'm sharing my story now. So I'm contributing this to the project in honor of my family. My paternal grandparents were John Courtney, born 1881, and Margaret Sweeney, born 1889, both who came from Northern Ireland. John graduated top of his high school class in Newry, spoke 5 languages, was an amateur musician with a great sense of humor, and with his wife, Margaret, also an amateur musician, raised 10 children in Drogheda. My maternal grandparents were Matthias Matt Derham and Elizabeth Eilish Kelly. Matt was born in Skerries in 1883 and was a carpenter by trade. He joined the Irish Volunteers and was mobilised in 1916, but missed the action in Dublin as the roads were blocked. So he and his comrades could not gain entry to the city before the surrender. For his involvement, though, he was interned in Frongoch Prison in Wales, where he spent some months before returning home. He was married in 1919 to Eilish, a teacher of Irish heritage from Birkenhead, England. In October 1920, the Black and Tans were on the rampage in the Skerries area, and they called to my grandparents' house. Matt managed to escape with his life and was put up in a safe house until he escaped through Canada to New York, where he worked as a carpenter on the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Eilish and their newborn child went to England to stay with her aunt until Matt and she were reunited in 1921. They returned to Skerries and raised 7 children, 4 boys and 3 girls. Matt was posthumously awarded the Easter Week 1916 Commemorative Medal. My father, Michael Kevin Courtney, was born in Drogheda in 1920, the 4th in a family of 5 boys and 5 girls. My mother, Catherine K. Derham, was born in Skerries in 1926, the 5th in her family. They were married in 1953 and raised 5 children, John, 54, Kevin, 56, myself, 59, Deirdre, 64, and David, 65. My childhood memories are of games with my siblings, laughter and music throughout our house, and fun summer holidays. In the 60s, we vacationed in Ireland, making day trips to Drogheda to visit relatives, and most summers renting a house in Skerries for a month. In the 70s, because my father imported shoes from Italy, we were fortunate to enjoy wonderful holidays in northern Italy. In 1979, my brother John emigrated to Canada, followed by his wife Geraldine. I followed them here in 1988, originally just for a year, but I ended up having a successful career at the University of British Columbia for over 30 years. I didn't look for the Irish in BC when I first arrived, but the desire to connect with my culture was strong. So since 2008, I have been involved with the Irish community in BC through various organizations. I love my adopted home, but my heart will always be in Ireland. And there you go. So that is my story, and that's everybody's story. Thank you so much to everybody who contributed to this. And you know, as it would be nice now to sort of think about, I'm going to get Frank back involved now and to chat a little bit more about the ideas of where this might go, what else we might, hopefully it has given other people the ideas of their stories and what they might do. So Frank, do you want to say a few words at this point?
Thank you, Eilish. And I must say that was a really interesting and fascinating insight into the story of the Irish in BC, and I'd like to thank everybody that contributed and all the work that was done. But when I did meet with Trish Lamb and the Gallery of Photography Ireland at the start, there was a little bit of concern that, you know, not everybody would be involved. How do we know who wants to get involved in the album project? And we were very fortunate that your good self, Eilish, took such a personal interest in it and the Women's Network. But as you pointed out earlier on, when you made the call and it went out to everybody, nobody replied. So that certainly helped address any particular issues we had. But at the same time, I think it would be very, very useful now to give everybody the opportunity to tell their story. So one proposal that's been seriously looked at and has been considered back home in Ireland, the Epic Museum, the museum that tells the story of the Irish diaspora globally, is very supportive. The Gallery of Photography Ireland is very supportive, is to build on this project and to have something that's totally open to everybody. And perhaps even to use the Irish and BC website. So the Irish and BC website could not only tell the story of what's happening in Ireland at present, but could perhaps it or another website could capture the story of the Irish in BC. And this would be open to everybody. People could upload their small number of photographs. They could have an oral history project. They could simply tell the story of their families. Because one thing about the COVID pandemic is it's brought home to me and this particular project is that we don't have family photographs anymore. So how are we going to know the story of our own families and what's going to, how will our children and our grandchildren know about, you know, the Irish Courtneys of BC in the years to come? And we are moving in a virtual world, so perhaps it would be great to have a website that would allow people to upload and tell their story in a structured way. We could also introduce perhaps a small questionnaire, like what part of Ireland did you come from? So the whole idea would be to make this website basically a pilot for international use. So you could have the story of the Irish in BC, then you could have the story of the Irish in Alberta, you could have the story of the Irish in New York, you'd have the story of the Irish in Shanghai. So it's another idea that that people think may be of interest, but at the end of the day, and what makes this project successful, the album, is that the Irish Women's Network took it on board and ran with it. And it's great for the consulate to have ideas and funding, and it is an honour and a pleasure, as I always say, to serve the Irish community here. And last year we accessed over $100,000. We only added it up on Friday and supported the Irish community in BC. Half of that due to COVID-19. But it's only because the Irish community is so active and so engaged, and it really is a fantastic community, and it is a pleasure to support it. So we would only go down this road if people are particularly interested in this. But I think myself, personally, it would be lovely to build on this and to know more about the Irish in Prince George, more about the Irish. We haven't got Kelowna covered. What about the Irish in Victoria, etc. So something that would be, it wouldn't be an overnight project. It's something that could be built on over the years, but I think it is something worth exploring. And we'd love to hear from you, A, if you think this is of interest, and B, if any ideas about how it could be done. But certainly it seems to be something worth definitely considering and ruling in and ruling out, so that certainly from the consulate's point of view, we then have our benchmarking exercise, we'll have a lovely office, and we'll be celebrating the history of the Irish here in BC and the welcome that we have received in BC as well. So I think that's enough for me for now, Eilish, and thank you very much.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, so as Frank mentioned, so we're In the next couple of weeks, we'll put something in the Irish. So in order to get your interest, of course, you can email irishnbc@gmail.com if you wish. But also we'll do a little survey, an article and a survey for those, because there's only so many people on this call, but there's a lot of other people out in the community, and we can direct them to watch this and then when the book comes out too. So it'll give them an idea of what's possible. And we're not limited to a book, or we're not limited to, really the options are open, and we are growing and developing the Irish NBC website to have that capacity. So, you know, anything's possible, but it needs involvement and engagement from the community. Otherwise, there's no point in sort of even starting down that road. So we will be in touch. Now, I just want to, I think we have, and they may have missed it. I realized that our clocks went forward that at the weekend, the Irish clocks didn't. So I have a funny feeling that our friends at the gallery joined us a little late, and maybe that, so because I could see people, so
we
Trish,
thought we were joining early.
Oh, there you go, I know.
We thought we were half an hour early, and then we were like, oh my God. So, yeah.
I know, it suddenly struck me when I saw you coming. Anyway, Trish, you were, this is Trish Lamb, we mentioned your name, and I know that Tanya I saw Tanya popping, and Dan. And we acknowledged all of you earlier, but do you want to say a quick couple of words? We've only got about less than 10 minutes left, but do you just want to say something about the book? Have you any update on the book?
The book, we think we finished the final typoing. There's been some shenanigans towards the end. One story came in, one story went out, and then Al Duffy, our first contributor, found 5 daguerreotypes behind a wall in Ontario. So now we've got a new front cover with these daguerreotypes from the 1860s from famine emigrants. So we've now got a new daguerreotype, which is a precious Victorian, tiny little one-off photographs. So we've a new cover with a woman on, so it's great. So it's been fun and games till the end, Ailish, but we'd just like to thank all the contributors because you've been very generous. It's been a real challenge to deliver this project because of COVID. But we would have given up maybe the whole project if it hadn't been for yourself and Frank, and the team, Blahin and Jennifer in the consulate there in Vancouver, because I think it was your commitment and your dedication and your va-va-voom, Ailish, because you're some woman for one woman, who really kind of kept the show on the road and kept everything going, and everything been an absolute delight to work with. But it's quite an intense process, and I know we did bully you somewhat and blow them off you famously. But actually, I think that you really understand it when it's your own family, when you see the transformation of taking modest, ordinary Irish stories, which are most of our family stories, and then you make them public. And when they go into print, or when they go into exhibition or outdoor projections, these are our histories, traveling in ways that was unplanned. But it's so democratic, and it's such a lovely testament to people's stories and histories that it's just, it's a delight to do it, and particularly for Irish people now, when the whole notion of what it means to be Irish is hopefully more fluid and flexible, both in terms of identity and also geography. And now, because it's, digital technology, it's all changed. So I think, like all the things that Frank was saying about those connections and making them visible, and in a screen-based world, the photographs can often grab the attention in ways that text doesn't always reach people. So it's been a real pleasure. We've absolutely loved it, and we felt very spoiled. And I'm sure you're going to do marvelous. It's going to be much easier to get people now once you've something to show people. You were talking earlier about reaching out, and Frank was worried that we might have too many people, but we know when you start these projects, people think you're mad to be wanting to be looking at people's family photographs. But actually, once you've got something on print, it's much easier to explain what it is you're looking for. And the question is always, what type of photographs are you looking for? And that's really hard to explain because it's kind of everything. But now you've got a crack digital archive team there now in Vancouver with Ailish. So We're redundant now. I don't know if any of my colleagues, Dan or Darren or Tanya or Audrey, want to pitch in anything, but we'd like to thank you, Eilish, and Frank and Blaheen and Jennifer for your support. It's been great.
Well, not at all. And I know, I mean, there were a number of people too, like I know Elaine from Mike Hurley's office was very involved in scanning too. There were a number of people, I didn't scan all of them, but I appreciate that. But it was a wonderful project. Now we've only got about 3 minutes left. I don't know, Rachel and Blaheen, were there any particular questions that you think, I know I haven't been looking at the chat. Before we go, is there anything that we need to answer? I'm happy to, we'll take the questions and I'm happy to get back to other people, or I'll happily answer questions afterwards if people have them regarding any of about this project or anything that we've done. But otherwise, I think we'll just give some acknowledgements, close up with thank you to the Gallery of Photography Ireland. As we said, it was a wonderful partnership working with you and quite the experience, something I've never done before, but I really learned a lot from you. So thank you. Of course, the Consulate General of Ireland in Vancouver, the office there was phenomenal. They're such a great team, a four-person team, but a mighty team doing incredible work. And the Irish Women's Network of BC was happy to be partnering it. And of course, Celtic Fest, please do support all the activities that are going on this week. There's an amazing array of and a variety of different sessions going on, and a lot of work has gone into it. And I think other than that, I will, it's 2 minutes to 1 o'clock. I will call it a day, and thank you all so much. And please do think about your family stories and your ideas for what we might do further on the story of the Irish in BC. And with that, I'll call it a day, and thank you all very much for coming. Have a good day.